Hey everybody, Questwise here, and today we're going to be doing the next part of our Rifts Explorers Guide series. Today we're going to be focusing on the northern part of Michigan. We're going to move further north. We're talking about the Upper Peninsula part of Michigan and some amazing things that are going on there in the Rifts universe. So let's get started. First of all, if you're not familiar with the geography of Michigan, there are two main peninsulas that make up the state of Michigan. There's the Lower Peninsula, which is a part that looks like the hand, and the Upper Peninsula, which is a small peninsula that kind of arches over between Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, right? That's where we're going to focus our attention today. We're going to be talking about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and some of the places that have sort of arrived or built themselves up in that area during the Rifts timeline. Prior to the Rifts apocalypse, right in the Chaos Earth era type of timeline, the Upper Peninsula part of Michigan was a very sort of rugged backcountry sort of area with small pockets of civilization. Michigan's interesting in that Michigan, the landscape is very heavily wooded in the north, in the northern Lower Peninsula, as well as most of the the Upper Peninsula. To the southern parts of Michigan becomes a little bit flatter, but still lots of wooded areas, lots of farmland and stuff as well. But the Upper Peninsula part of Michigan, in the our real world and Chaos Earth type sort of time period, is a very heavily wooded with small towns scattered throughout the landscape up there, as it were. The UP, as we affectionately call it, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, was well known for copper reserves that were found up through there, and which made going there and a lot of these towns sort of burst up because of the copper trade and copper mining that had happened there. After Rifts, after Chaos Earth falls and the Rifts apocalypse comes, what happens is a few of these communities are saved from the brunt of the fallout because of there being a lack of ley lines that arrived in the Upper Peninsula, but as well as the peninsula itself being sort of protected by the lakes that it's surrounded by. And so several of the communities survived up there. Most importantly, Ishpeming and Manistee, or what we refer to it as Manistee, and Escanaba, right? So these are the three main areas that have survived up there, amongst hundreds of other smaller little tiny communities up there as well too, brought together by Ishpeming, which is also known as Northern Gun now in the Rifts universe. Northern Gun is a corporation that now produces power armor. They produce vehicles, SDC weapons. They produce light combat vehicles, all sorts of technology. They are in the Rifts, as the time of the Rifts universe begins, or timeline begins in the book. They are the third strongest corporation in the world, next to the Coalition and Triax over in Germany. They are the number one source for adventurers and mercenaries alike, because they, unlike the Coalition, the Coalition technology is not available to the public, where Northern Gun began to produce their things and make them initially available to anybody who could afford them. There was limited cybernetic and bionic and augmentation available as well too, and so you could find, if you were needing some sort of cybernetic thing, you could find those kinds of things here. But for the most part, it was more military grade type of industry that it was producing. The main capital city of Northern Gun, Ishpeming, their population skyrocketed. What sounds like small numbers to us in today's world, say compared to Chicago or New York, Ishpeming was boasting a number of about 700,000 folks, right? Which is very large, which is a very considerable size for, one, after an apocalypse has happened, and two, for the Upper Peninsula part of Michigan anyway, where many of those places, many of those communities up there tend to be smaller in population numbers. The other very important corporation that lives up there, or is founded up there as well too, is Wellington Industries, which is part of the Manistee Imperium. They are a neighbor to Northern Gun. They also kind of a sort of friendly rival as well too. They created more like commercial vehicles and weapons and such as well. But what was their key component is that they had they boasted a university that taught mechanical engineering, right? And so education levels, literacy levels everywhere in the Wellington Industries was very, very high. Their main city, Escanaba, had a population of about 260,000 folks as well, all of them with very high education levels. So this makes a very cool place for adventurers to go if you want to run some sort of an adventure or a campaign set in Michigan and or around the Great Lakes. This makes a nice sort of central hub for those kinds of things. Outside of this area is wilderness that is filled with demons and DBs and small roving bands of communities and such. But this is sort of like an oasis in the middle of that craziness between here and Chi-Town over in where Chicago is today. There's also a small company called Titan Robotics up there. You see a lot of their stuff in the Rifts book as well as some of the expansion books as well too. Their power armor is very unique and it stands out very uniquely as amongst other types of power armors and stuff as well too. What's interesting is that there's also, not only is this as a hub for adventurers and mercenaries to buy equipment and to live or count as a home base in games, but there's also a very cool bit of intrigue and stuff that's going on as well too. So while the Northern Gun and Wellington Industries and all these guys had provided their production to the public per se, one of the tipping points and one of the cool aspects of this whole area within the Rifts universe is the time period when Northern Gun signed an exclusive deal with the Coalition to provide them with technology and weapons and armor and whatnot. What this does is it took sort of the market off of the adventurers or the mercenary side, but what it did is it increased the amount of production, because now Northern Gun is extremely wealthy from the influx of funds coming from the Coalition, but still feeding a lot of their technology and stuff to the underground black market, which still makes it available to mercenaries and adventurers and other public folk. What I think would make a really cool sort of aspect to a campaign and an adventure type of setting is now the Northern Gun has sort of an inside look at the Coalition, right? Having been a very independent and sort of people's type of company, type of organization, they now have links to the Coalition and their mission logs and their wants and needs and orders and stuff. So they have, I think within that you could build a cool sort of campaign around the fact that there are people within the Northern Gun who, while they have they have a contract with the Coalition, are still very anti-Coalition in their theories, right? And that would make a cool sort of campaign setting where you're maybe operatives of Northern Gun sort of infiltrating the Coalition to find out more about their mission stats and, you know, where their troops are going to be deployed and what it is that they're sort of focusing on, right? I think that would just be a cool campaign setting where you're playing, a variety of different things, maybe undercover as Coalition soldiers and or spies, officers, going about feeding information back to the Northern Gun, and maybe that sort of being the precursor to this big sort of like war between Northern Gun and the Coalition itself. So cool stuff there. I think that's the Northern Michigan or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan makes a cool campaign setting. Next time we're going to focus on Chi-Town. It's going to be a much longer video where we talk about the birth and the setting of Chi-Town and the old Chicago, as it were, and all the cool adventures that you can have that birth out of that area as well. So until next time, I'm Questwise, and we are out.